Welcome to the Copilot Show, where I interview Microsoft staff innovating with AI. I hope you will find this podcast educational and inspire you to do more with this great technology. Now, let's get on with the show. Welcome to the Copilot Show. Today, we're joined from Microsoft by Brian, a tech strategist whose work in reshaping how IT leaders use Microsoft 365 Copilot. Full links are in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
Brian, good to have you on. I'm quite excited about having this chat with you just because of your experience and tenure inside Microsoft. But before we do that, just update me. Food, family, and fun. What do they mean to you? What part of the US are you based in? What do you get up to when you're not thinking about work?
Well, I've been around the tech industry for quite a while. I've been at Microsoft for 18 years now. Family, I've got 4 grandkids, so they're pretty much my main focus. They come over all the time, swim in the pool, just, hang out. So they're pretty awesome. Family, I'm living in New Jersey because of my family. I started Microsoft in Charlotte, North Carolina. They moved me out to the mothership, which is out in Redmond. And so I was out there for 10 years, and then everyone started working from home during the pandemic. And I thought, well, this is a perfect time to be closer to my grandkids. And so I moved to New Jersey, and now I'm 1.5 miles from them. But I like to tell people I took a wrong turn in Albuquerque. So that's how I ended up in New Jersey.
I love that. I love that. And did we mention food?
No, I try to stick away from food. Looks like I've had enough food during my life. And I don't need to talk about it, dude. So, but yeah, it is what it is. Pizza, obviously.
I love it.
Brisket, whatever.
From that defining point in November 2022, when OpenAI came to market with what was going to redefine most people's perceptions of what AI is in the world, even though, it's been around since the 60s. What has it meant for your career? What are you doing now? What's your focus inside Microsoft when it comes to AI?
So within Microsoft, we had this conference called MLADS, or Machine Learning and Data Science. And so what this conference did is it's twice a year, one in the spring, one in the fall, and it would basically be developers and engineers getting together to talk about machine learning. And, this was before AI was really talked about, but just machine learning and data science and learning that. At one point in my career, I thought I might become a data scientist. I even, took the courses to become a data scientist, just never followed through on it. But, I've always been interested in, machine learning and what it could do. I could see at its early stages what people were doing with machine learning. They were talking about image analysis. And so, like there was the early applications like, which dog are you, right? That was an early application that Microsoft came out with. Like you could actually install it on your iPhone and you could, take a picture of you and it would tell you what dog you were most like. I mean, that's a silly use of AI, but it is a use early on that they were doing. One of the things I didn't like as much is I would walk past, they'd have a camera set up at the conference, and the camera would guess your age based on your image.
Wow.
And it always guessed me like 10 to 15 years older. I guess it's because of my long white beard. So I didn't like that too much, but I learned to deal with it.
That's cool.
I've been following AI for a very long time. When they first announced the Copilot, I'm currently a principal CSAM, which is a customer success account manager. And so I've got, 5 customers that I deal with right now. But when they first announced it, it was actually on my birthday when they announced it. So it was kind of like a gift to me. And so they announced it and I started following it. And right from the beginning, I was trying to figure out, how can I use this to make myself more successful? Because if I can make myself more successful, then I could tell my customers how they can be more successful. And so early on, I was trying to figure out the technology, and I went through the whole, doldrums of belief and disbelief and all the things you go through as part of the Copilot journey. But I went through that early on. And so I got to the point where, I could see the future. I could see the vision. I could see where it was going a lot earlier than others. And so there was a lot of doubters out there. And so I just kept beating the drum and, teaching and learning as much as I could about Copilot.
I love it. So Copilot, and let's just narrow it down for the audience. We're going to talk about M365 Copilot explicitly. So really coming in 2 formats, either chat, which is the freemium version, or it comes with an M365 license, whether it be E3 or E5 in your organization, And then there's the $30 SKU. And so I really want to narrow down into this space here. When you talk about with your customers around enablement with, let's say, the web experience that you get, we also have it in Teams, we have it in Outlook, and of course, there's hardly an M365 app that you could touch these days that don't have Copilot in, right? And I find some of the edge cases, and when I say edge, tools that perhaps a lot of businesses are not using regularly, and the one that will jump to mind for me will be things like Whiteboard, would be Microsoft Forms. If you've used Copilot in either of these two products, prepare to be amazed because it's pretty epic, right? What you can do with
it. Makes for a great demo.
Yeah.
Definitely does. Yeah.
But like I've found, like, the Whiteboard one, for example, if you're in a meeting, let's say you're, even it might be a meeting with executives and you're trying to come up with AI use cases, and you can go, hey, to the Copilot, give me 4 conversation starters and just put them on there as notes, and then people start going, the board's no longer blank. There's somebody else, in this case AI, has put some ideas up there, and it seems to unleash something. And then if you take the Forms tool, I am blown away about how effective, as long as you've given it a good example of what the form is going to be used for, what you're giving it the subject domain area, blah, blah. Amazing. Like, for me, a massive time saver, because then I can just do the final edits to, put polish on it. Let's go back to the web experience and the interface, M365, experience that a lot of people would have. You've got the web, you've got the focus on your company view, right? You plugging into the Microsoft Graph. You can tell when someone's been in the space a while, right? Using old nomenclature. Tell me about, how do you get people to that big aha moment where they can go, oh my gosh, this is going to be so awesome for what I do in my role?
Yeah. So jump back a little bit. So when I was at 10 years in Redmond, I was in office engineering, right? Yeah. And so I worked on the office team. And so we knew that, this product had like millions of lines of code. I think when I was out there, we reached like 10 million lines of code, or maybe 100 million lines of code. So it's huge, huge code base. But, it's been around for so long that people kept adding features here and features here and features here. And there's all these features, and there's feature glut or overload, right? And so the one thing that grabbed me about Copilot is we, as an average user, use about 5 to 7% of the product. Power users will use 10 to 15% of the features of the product. But then you get Copilot comes along, guess what? It can use 100% of the features. If it needs to do something, it can use any one of those features to get it done. So what you see from Copilot is some of these more advanced presentations, some of these more advanced PowerPoints, these more advanced Excel formulas, all these things that we would have to take time to learn. Copilot's just spitting those things out, right? And it's presenting this polished, beautiful output that we just need to tweak a little bit here and there, and we're done. And it looks like we've spent, weeks on this presentation. It's taken minutes, right? So it's those type of things that I find really impactful when it comes to Copilot. And you talked about, there's Copilots everywhere. That causes a problem in the fact that certain release channels come out quicker. Like you will always get the most recent Copilot in the web. So if you're using the web interface, it's always going to be the most recent. We release that probably multiple times per day. I mean, these things get released very often. Whereas if you're using M365 Copilot in Teams, not the Teams Copilot, but still the M365, it may act differently than the web. And so that confuses people between the two. At some point, we're going to get feature parity and everything's going to be stable, but the product cycle is moving so fast. It's hard to understand. Like I've done demos in the morning, and those demos work differently or don't work in the afternoon. That work that morning. And I'm like, what? And so I have to pivot, and you just have to be available for that and understand that this is a fast moving, growing product. And again, you talked about there's Copilots everywhere. One of the things we like to say is we put Copilot where you do work. So if you do work in Whiteboard, we give you a Copilot to help you out. If you do work in Word, we give you a Copilot. If you do work in Notepad now, we give you a Copilot, right? I mean, there's a Copilot everywhere because you're doing work everywhere. And so we try to make it, simple. Also, there's a classification that I like to think about. is there's really three flavors of Copilot. There's the tools. In other words, you click a button, you get a result. Like your email, you click summarize, you get a result. You don't have to type a prompt. You don't have to say anything. You just click a button, you get a result, right? The second type is an application specific. So if you're in Outlook and you want to summarize your emails for the past week, that Copilot has been specially tuned to work with Outlook, right? It knows about your calendar, it knows about your emails, and it can do anything in Outlook, but you can't really ask that one to go do something in PowerPoint, right? Because it's not tuned for that. It's not designed for that. That's like the whole new idea of agents. And so you have agents to perform certain tasks, and agents perform great at that task, but they may not perform great at a different task. Same way with the application specific. Think of those as really agents for that application. And then you've got the M365 Copilot chat, which is, I like to call it the Copilot to rule them all, if you will, which actually, can do your entire Microsoft graph, has access to all your data. You can pull in more data. You can use agents. I mean, it just gives you so much flexibility. You can say, create a Word document. Once you've created that, you can say, okay, now create a PowerPoint based on that Word document. It can do that, right? So it just works across the entirety of the stack.
Rolling out Microsoft 365 Copilot licenses isn't enough. You need an adoption plan to get people using it well. In our new book, published by Microsoft, we offer a practical guide to successful Copilot adoption. Many leaders believe in the why of Copilot and AI, but they need guidance on how, from practical frameworks to enabling champions and measuring impact. Get your copy of Microsoft 365 Copilot Adoption now from Amazon or find a link in the show notes.
I like that one agent to rule them all. And, last year I really liked the concept of Copilot, the UI for AI. I love that concept. I think I would like to see that concept extended so much further in that employees don't have to know which AI interface to use, just they could use a single one and it would step them into any other world that they needed to ultimately. When you talk, with customers and you have, the web experience, and then over on the left-hand side, we've got two agents that sit over there. We've got researcher and the analyst agent. So how do you talk about those and how folks in business should be thinking about those two agents specifically in context of their main chat experience?
That's interesting you bring that up, because I literally did a training this morning for a customer on researcher and analyst. And so when I presented it, it's like having two additional people on your team, right? Normally you would hire a researcher to go and do work, to research certain things for you. Well, now you have a built-in researcher that can do that work on your behalf, right? So you ask it a question, it comes back, it asks more clarifying questions to make sure it understands you. You clarify, you give those questions. Now it's not a fast experience. It's not designed as a fast experience because it's what's called a multi-shot agent, right? It doesn't just go out, get an answer, come back, and you're done, right? It's built on ChatGPT 4.0, and so it's a multi-shot agent. And then you've got Analyst, which is on 4.0 Mini, right? And so the Mini one is much smaller, but again, these are agents that have been fine-tuned to do the kind of work that they're suggesting, right? If you want research done, you use the researcher. If you have data that you need to analyze, well, you've got that analyzer. And so remember how I talked about earlier becoming a data scientist? Well, guess what? I've got a data scientist working for me now, right? Yeah. So I've got this analyst agent, and I can ask it to go out and it can do Python code in the background. I don't even know Python. I've been trying to learn Python. And now I basically, every time I run Analyst, I open it up and look at the Python code and I read it because I want to understand it and learn it, right? So not only is it doing work for me, but it's helping me learn along with it and along that journey. And so it can take an Excel spreadsheet that you haven't been opened up and say, hey, go analyze this spreadsheet. And it'll take all the data in, all the tables that are in that spreadsheet. It'll do comparisons. It can compare multiple files, like, what's changed between this file and that file, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of things that analysts can do and give you, you can say, create a bar chart or a pie chart or whatever you need. And it's going to generate that graphic on the fly using Python. So it's really cool. It's like when they added Python into Excel, right? Excel, when it first came out, sorry, but it sucked, right? Because you go in it and maybe it could change the format of a column. It could change the font. It might highlight a row or two, but it didn't do anything, right? It didn't do anything useful. But then they went back and they re-engineered it. And now you can do this deep analysis, and you can like bring in multiple tables and compare them together and do, VLOOKUPs on multiple data values and put them into a single column. And then it does, Python to automatically generate graphs for you and pivot tables and pivot charts and all these different things that, again, used to be those advanced users that could do that. Right. But now Copilot is giving that ability to use that advanced feature set that wasn't available to you before. And so a lot of people are realizing, oh my God, not that I didn't know Copilot could do that. I didn't know Excel could do that. Right. Because it's a feature in Excel that very rarely got used. And so now we're highlighting those advanced feature sets of the tooling.
I love that. And I've experienced it firsthand, the ability to do stuff that I had given up on my career doing because it didn't play to my strengths, but I am now able to do it. And I'll give you a simple example. In my career, I've always been involved in large teams, and I was mainly in what you would call the pre-sales space. I would be the one that did the orals presentation to the customer of how this piece of tech was going to transform your business. Before I got there, someone in the team had to have written a proposal that got us to that shortlist, that got us to there. And I wouldn't touch proposals because dyslexic, I'm not good with words. Well, I never thought I was, right? And so, but right now I have a proposal template in Word, right, which covers everything that a modern proposal would need to respond to and pitch some form of technology to a customer. That proposal template is 50 pages long. Actually, it's 51 pages long, and all those 51 pages are prompts. It's only prompt. There's no data in it. It's only prompt. So what I've found, you talk about one-shot prompting and, multi, prompting, is that I start with researcher and I research the customer I'm going to deal with based on all their public-facing assets, etc. It does a whole big researcher piece for me. And then because I prefer to listen than read, as in I use a tool that reads that entire research piece to me. And now I feel like I know this customer. I know them, right? Because it's brought in such that richness. Then I go into the normal interface and I start with my grounding prompt where it asks me 10 questions about what I'm about to do. Who is the customer? What's the name of the proposal? Are there any files that I'm aware of that I want to include? So I'll go, hey, there's this OneDrive file. This was their brief from the customer. There's been these 3 Teams meetings with their transcripts. There's been 5 emails with different people, right? I want to pull that in. I'm not just going to let the graph find them. I want to make sure I'm grounding on all the subject lines, etc. I give it that. And then I'll give into what I propose that the pitch will be. Like if we've got 5 ways of delivering a service, I will go through, it's going to be this one. It'll ask me things about what currency. I can do it euros, pounds, USD, all this grounding stuff. And at the end of that prompt, it spits me out a JSON file. And this is really important because by the time I'm about 2/3 through this prompt stream, it says your tokens are basically run out. We can't carry on the conversation. But because I have created that JSON output, I can just create a new conversation, drop that JSON in, and it's like we're off, but it's got all the context of everything that's happened. And what is amazing to me is the ability to match and mirror the customer's wording now against the product and services. So when they read it, they literally see their own language coming through. And I don't think people understand just how powerful for any part of business that is for them, right? To have that rich Microsoft Graph data set of your organization, the research of the customer's organization, and then focus it around a particular business process, writing a proposal in this case, and how it creates such a richer experience to all parties that then consume that document.
Yeah. And they're taking it a step further too. You're talking about a lot of, copy and paste and this and that, but they're taking it a step even further with agents, right? you'll be able to receive an email from a customer, assuming they followed a certain format that you define. When you receive that email, an agent will pick that up. It'll do 90% of the work. It may come back and ask you a few clarifying questions, like you said, what dollar, figure, that sort of thing. And then it will complete that. It can create a Teams room. It can add everybody who needs to have a say in this proposal. And then it can attach the completed proposal to that Teams meeting.
I love it.
And then start the meeting for everybody, right? And so now everybody's on the call. Everyone's got the completed thing. All you got to do is work through it, finish it, and you're done. Yeah. Right? So you're taking that manual step and those things you need to follow up on, and it's following up for you. It's becoming your digital worker, right?
I love it.
And that's where agents are going. It starts off by, Copilot was your assistant, right? It's your co-pilot, right? So it's sitting there, it's helping you. And then soon it's going to be, doing tasks for you. Like you can distribute work to it. It'll go off and do that work and come back. Soon we're going to be managing a digital workforce, right? And so we will have an army of agents working for us. And all we do is make sure that the data is fed correctly into the agents to do the work to deliver the product, right? We're not going to be delivering the product. The agents are going to be delivering the product back to us that we can then use to, and people who don't embrace that are the ones that are on the train like, oh, AI is taking my job. Well, embrace it, right? Understand it. See how it can help you. Let it make you more successful, right? And those are the people that are going to be around a long time.
Yeah. So it's really interesting what you've highlighted and touched on there is around one, maybe two skills that I think are going to be really important for people to understand is that often in your career, unless you've done formal management training, you've never taught how to delegate effectively. In other words, here's what I need done. This is what a good result looks like. Here's my time frame. Here's my expectations. And hey, if you have any questions, don't guess, come back and ask, right? Like good delegation. And so, sometimes I think of this as being a good director. You're going to direct things to happen. They're going to be done, and then you're going to get an output and result that you need to validate. Yeah. How do we start training people? Like you talked about a digital worker, and I think that this is coming at us at a speed I don't think a lot of people realize how much we are going to be commingled in the workforce with digital workers. They will have the nous, they'll have this SME, the expertise of their subject area. Let's say they're a marketer or an HR, digital worker, etc., that will bring all that knowledge to bear in a very tight fashion. But your role as a person is going to perhaps have to coordinate and facilitate. I love that Entra now has this concept of a digital agent is still ID'd as a user, right? So now you can really understand the parties involved, which I think is so critically important. But how do companies start re-educating, taking their workforce on a change journey of a workforce that is not just going to be made up of flesh and blood people?
Yeah, one thing that's fighting against us is the media, right? You get in the media, you get all these people saying, it's not accurate, it's hallucinating, it's doing this or that. And so I started working with a customer about 6 months ago, and the first thing they told me is, well, Copilot can't do my year-end close because it's not accurate, so I can't use Copilot. And that was such a short-sighted view as to what Copilot is. A lot of times, our biggest challenge when talking to a customer is opening their eyes to all the things that AI is now doing, right? Yes, it's doing generative AI. Yes, it's coming up with text for you, but it's doing so much more. It's answering your emails. It's classifying your meeting invites. It's categorizing your email. It's doing all these things that we used to have to do manually, and it's doing it for us so that we can be more efficient and, do things a lot easier than we used to do before. One of the things I do a lot of presentations. And so I would spend an hour, maybe an hour and a half after every presentation, just, coming up with notes. I'd rewatch the video. I'd take notes. I'd do all these things just to come up with a good follow-up email. Now I basically say, Copilot, do a recap of this meeting. And I send that out and it takes me, 3 minutes, something that used to take me an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And so, just those savings are huge.
I'll give you an example from the legal profession I've heard recently. The legal profession operates on a model of bill by the minute. I think in New Zealand, they have a 3-minute cycle that I understand is that every 3 minutes, it needs to be allocated to let's say if you're photocopying, 3 minutes, whatever, it gets allocated to a bill, right? And that's why often lawyers are seen as expensive. In this organization, they were doing a legal matter at scale for businesses. They charged $25,000 every time they did this for a customer. And we're talking about in commercial law, right? So, the high end of town, absolutely. It was 40 hours of work for a lawyer to do this, which was charged at $25,000. They turned around and implemented AI as part of that procedure and reduced the time to do that 40 hours of work to 4 hours, right?
It's incredible. Yeah.
Now, the company might go, hang on a second. We can only bill 4 hours for something we were billing 40 hours before. That's going to hurt our business. What they did was that said, hang on a second, we now can have that lawyer do X factor the number of these same things in a 40-hour period.
Yep.
What we're going to do is half the price of it in market
right
for our customers, but we get this massive X factor of the number we can put out. So we're actually going to make a lot more, yet drive down the price for the customer. And I'm like, that is amazing win-win scenario of using AI to create better outputs at scale. Everybody wins. The law firm can do more work of this type and therefore bill really more hours through the leverage they've created. And the customer gets it at half of what their traditional buy price in market was.
That's the economies of scale. That's what's made Walmart so successful, right? Because they can buy in such huge bulk, they get cheaper prices. They just discount cheaper than the competitors, but they're still getting the same markup. But they're getting, or even more, because they bought it at such discount. So that's economies of scale. So as you scale this up, you can't think about the individual, difference in it. You got to think about how many more would that allow that lawyer to do, right? Or do you even need the person that was doing that? That's a salary that you might be able to get by without. Now, again, that we come back to people all fearful of losing their jobs to AI, but just you got to position yourself in the right way to understand how it can help you in your business.
Yeah.
And you will be successful. So
my last question as we draw to a close is, how do you get beyond the concept of first impressions? And what I mean by that is that I've noticed when Copilot is implemented in organizations where the IT just turns it on, roll out, let's say 2,000 licenses, they don't do any adoption program, no training program, and then 3 to 6 months later they go, it's useless. Nobody's using it. Our data shows nobody's interested, etc. And I feel like the first impression to everybody was not a great impression because they were never taken on a journey and shown the art of the possible. And so how do you move people from that first impression being bad? Because what I've noticed is that all of a sudden they're looking over the shoulder of somebody that gets it. In fact, I was doing this today with somebody in Canada. I showed them how I was doing that proposal type stuff, and their eyes just like exploded out of their head because I could see the neurons firing in their brain, so to speak, of all their use cases that now just opened up to them beyond what they were thinking. And so how have you found to move folks from their first bad impression to actually, this tool is going to revolutionize my life?
So that's a great point, because when we first saw Copilot come out, we haven't seen a desire for a product this high. We say internally, the best way to get a large attendance to your meeting is to put AI or Copilot in the title, and your meeting attendance will double or triple because everybody's interested in it. But even the art of the possible gets you excited about it. But once you get it, you try those 3, 4, 5 things that you've seen in the art of the possible, then you go, yep, that works. And then you go back to doing your day-to-day job. It's not an immediate grasp of the tooling. And so when we first started up, we had a lot of these competitions to see how many people could use Copilot consistently. And we have called daily active users, right? So the DAO. And so we were trying to get our DAO up because they say you have to use the product and save at least 20 minutes a week over a 6 or 7 week period.
Interesting.
And then you understand how it can save you long term, right? Then you get it. And that's when the light bulb goes off and you understand it. So even just doing it for a week, if if you don't train yourself to go back and use this and, use it for learning, use it for summarization, use it for, what did I do last week? Or what was the status of this issue that we ran last week? I forgot. It was last Friday, right? It's a 3-day weekend. I forgot everything that happened last week, right? So reminding me what happened last week so I can follow up on those things this morning, right? That sort of stuff. Those are the things that are going to have you reusing the product every single day. So
I love it. Brian, it's been so cool talking to you. I've learned so much, and I love when I talk to a person that's been in Microsoft for a long time, where a lot of folks in their careers get tired of the company they work for. They don't angle up and get even more excited, and I can just see that excitement coming through from you.
Oh, I'm very passionate when it comes to Copilot and all the things it can do. I mean, I always tell myself I can't wait to see where it's going to be in 5 years. And I also tell people that the Copilot you're using today is the dumbest Copilot you'll ever use, because it's constantly getting better, it's constantly improving, and before you know it, I mean, you're going to look back and go, what was I doing with Copilot? I was making funny images of unicorns standing on the moon. I mean, what? Could it do it? Yes. But why was I doing it? Right? Because I was learning to use the product. So the product is awesome. It's so many different features and more features coming out every single day. So give it a shot.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 guy. Is there a guest you would like to see on the show from Microsoft? Please message me on LinkedIn and I'll see what I can do. Final question for you. How will you create with Copilot today? Ka kite.